getting Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth on AFR Talk.
Welcome back, Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth, AFR Talk. Great to be with you. Hope you're having a wonderful Wednesday. Yeah, brief overview of the situation with our national security. We're going to return to the issue of war. Some very interesting statements from Marcus Luttrell and Bob Gates. So, and looking, lone survivor, yes. Marcus Luttrell, based on his experience and his heroicism, and Bob Gates. We'll get to that a little later. I just wanted to bring you up to speed because I know oftentimes we can think of things, oh, well, Iran's building a nuke, and then all of a sudden it's a flashpoint because they have the nuke. And everybody says, well, how did we get here? Well, I want you to know how we got here. We have a naive president, a president that's not recognizing evil and actually holding back those who want to hold Iran accountable. All on this willfully blind notion that this is the best chance in history. We really? Meanwhile, the criticism that comes out of the White House is for the Israel defense minister recognizing what Kerry is attempting to do and making comments about it and characterizing it as messianic. Just history will not be kind to the Obama administration or to the left. It never is. That's why they have to rewrite it. Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth. Now we move to another big story, and that is, well, media bias. Boring. It's not boring because you got to keep up. You got to learn that, hey, it's got to be pretty refreshing to realize that they have to distort, they have to omit, they have to lie in order to have their story told. Now, why is that? Well, they can tell their story, but their story oftentimes and the story that they're reporting would prove to be inaccurate if they offered some type of balance. That's why they think when there is balance, it's conservative bias in the tank of the conservatives. Report two sides, one side liberal, one side conservative, and what will you have? Give them equal time? Yeah. The conservative it's going to appear as if the conservative, wait a second here. The conservative is actually getting more time, or somehow it's unfair. No, it's absolutely fair. I know, I should check with the Minister of Fairness, our president, and some of the more comments that he made today, following up on yesterday's, which I will next hour. Right now, I want to go to a few clips to illustrate my point about just how corrupt the media is and their willingness to, quite frankly, politicize their viewpoints to the degree that it hurts us all. What do I mean? Jonathan Alter on MSNBC was discussing the Bridgegate controversy with Chris Christie. I want to say this very clearly. I think it is something that they need to follow up on. I like the coverage in the sense that they're going to keep holding him to account. I think the investigator made some very good points regarding Chris Christie and when did he know, what did he know, when did he know it? And it shows if he didn't know, incompetence, a degree of it. And if he did, he should resign because he was dishonest with the people that he represented. That said, I would also like to see a lot more coverage of Benghazi, the disclosures, the history, the IRS. Well, let's just stop there. Here's Jonathan Alter, a man who has written books on the president and certainly a liberal lion when it comes to his viewpoints and what he addresses. I debated him once. He wouldn't come back on my show. It was back in 2004, pardon me. And he kept on saying things that were simply not true, so I kept questioning him, and it was a recorded interview for my show that ran later because that's when I could get him on, and I said, I'd love to do this again. And he goes, no. I said, would you do it again? No. Back to the story. Here he is talking about how conservatives are invoking the IRS scandal with Chris Christie and calling us dishonest. Roll it.
Both Christie and Obama are very skillful when they're in trouble. Remember how Obama handled the Reverend Wright situation during the campaign. But substance eventually counts.
Yes.
Documents count. We now have smoking emails in this case.
Right.
So will a lot of this eventually pass? Yes, because scandals always pass. You mentioned the IRS scandal. Who can even really remember that? And that was only last year.
The Republican base, probably.
But it can be very hard to rev that up if there are not ongoing revelations. If there were ongoing revelations in the IRS matter, that would still be a story.
Well, there have been ongoing revelations, as Paul Bremer points out from newsbusters.org. And including, and here's the big one, I think. Of course, it would be the email surfacing, speaking of emails, communications that have surfaced where Lois Lerner illegally gave the confidential tax information of several Tea Party groups to the Federal Election Commission. That was in late October, and that was from Judicial Watch. Darrell Issa, Jim Jordan, both Republicans, disclosed that the Justice Department had chosen an Obama donor to head the investigation to the IRS scandal with a big-time donor conflict of interest, to say the least. That's a story. How about people being audited who have questioned, like Ben Carson? I mean, there have been revelations, and the idea that somehow they don't mention these. They don't mention the newly released emails in September that contradicted Lois Lerner's assertion that the IRS was just the work of the two rogue Cincinnati workers and the IRS workers in the Cincinnati office. I mean, and I'm bringing this up because he goes, no new revelations. And this is what gets people in the mind of folks when they hear this, and generally speaking, they say, oh, Teflon, Bill Clinton, Teflon, amazing. Nothing stuck to him. I'll tell you why. Because the press did not follow up. The press didn't go after the substance. The press would start repeating the line about investigations with Bill Clinton, about how much it was costing, not mentioning the stonewalling coming from Clinton. And the reason it was costing so much was he wasn't working with the investigation and producing documents, or was doing so in a way that would cost more time by doing a big paper dump. Bottom line, when somebody says, oh, they handle scandals well, Obama didn't handle the scandal well. He was aided by those in the Journaliste scandal that anybody would question President Obama and the ties to Wright was called a racist. And that was a coordinated campaign. I'm just tired of the rewriting of history. They're not that, oh, they're just genius how they do it. Really? Please don't buy that. And this is why it adds to the argument, or excuse me, their desire is for people to be silent, so they give up, they quit. They either say, well, I don't want to be persecuted if I do speak out, and if I do speak, and quite frankly, it won't make a difference anyway. Because if I do, it won't go anywhere. Well, people are still looking into Benghazi. People are still going into the IRS and obviously giving us updates. But the goal of those who are supporting people and are willfully blind to their transgressions, or if they're not, and they knowingly are seeing what they have done and sacrificing freedom on the altar of partisanship an ideological point of view, not recognizing that could come back the other way if they're not in power and they really don't understand the idea of freedom and the fact that we're all Americans first. And by the way, that's what we are without hyphens. So it goes into that. No, President Obama, let me ask you, the first debate, why did President Obama seem to fall flat? Because Mitt Romney simply mentioned his record and would give him the facts, and people, it wasn't a time issue. It was the fact that, people got to see for the first time him confronted with follow-ups where he couldn't filibuster, walk out the question and not answer it. He had somebody there going, wait a second, Mr. President, that's not true on, well, it could be land usage for drilling. So this is not a pep talk, but this is a reality check. Crane Durham's nothing but truth. Bottom line, these things matter. They're still there. And don't buy the lie that your opinion and your voice doesn't matter. It does. I'll get to how they are trying to silence further more. I read an AFA action alert today. Very interesting. I know they covered it in One News Now, onenewsnow.com, American Family News. Don't buy it, because you're undermining not only your freedom, our freedom, but our next generation. And we have an obligation. We can step up. Really important. All right, so let's keep moving. And something else that we saw today, or excuse me, not today, but this was Cuomo. Actually, I'm going to dump that one, and I'm going to jump right to CNN Crossfire. So I want to go to cut number 3, CNN Crossfire. You have Sally Kohn, liberal journalist, and Donna Brazile, and you have those two against Representative Ehrlich and, is it Upton? Yeah, Upton and Gingrich. Here's the exchange when it comes to identifying the scandals, getting a free pass, the IRS, and the exchange. Roll it.
Ms. Lois Lerner was forced to retire early. And then we have Holly Pass, who was in charge of all of the agreements with the IRS. She was also placed on indefinite leave. And you know what? President
Indefinite
Obama
leave's not far. It's 3.
President
It's 3.
Obama,
None of whom are close to him.
Because this happened in the Cincinnati office. I mean, was he supposed to go down to Cincinnati?
The Obamacare website, it happened in the Cincinnati office?
No, but I was talking about
that was one scandal, not all the rest of the scandals.
But some of these are tragedies that we should.
They are.
Look,
Obamacare is a tragedy. I agree.
Having millions of Americans without health.
That is and I am not kidding. That is not
having
funny.
People,
Absolutely.
Declare bankruptcy just so that they can stay healthy. That's a tragedy. Giving people access to health care should never be a tragedy.
Are you talking about the ones who were dumped off their insurance by Obamacare? Is that the
What was a tragedy?
Because the insurance company will not, but because the insurance company says that we can't sell you this crappy policy anymore, and therefore you have to buy a new policy. Come on.
I love that. I just love that. You just heard it, folks.
Look, I'm on individual market.
Crappy policy.
We
know best.
Absolutely.
Washington knows best.
Bob Ehrlich is the former Republican governor of Maryland. That was Newt Gingrich. And speaking to Donna Brazile, who did the majority of the defending. Now, she mentioned the IRS scandal and saying nothing new there, and people were held to account. But the fact is they were not. And that was demonstrated in the response. So what is the tactic from the left when it comes to being held to account for their transgressions or their policy failures? It is to simply deny and lie. And that sounds harsh, but that's the reality. That's what you're getting. Because, it was too rogue. No, actually, the emails that I mentioned in the previous clip with Jonathan Alter, actually, no. Emails reveal that's simply not true with Lois Lerner. So that's a lie. That's evidence that has been released and it's available. But hey, I'll stick to the rogue agent story because that's the story, and I can just, maybe low information voters will tune out. Probably not on Crossfire, though, and certainly not on AFR Talk because you all are in the know. I get that. Some of you are just becoming part of that and growing and recognizing, hey, Crane might be right-wing. He's a Christian conservative, and he's been called all sorts of things, but so be it. The bottom line is, if you disagree with me, put it on the table, welcome to the table, and understand I'm not making this stuff up. I'm only exposing what is happening, which is you just saw it. She came out and said people were held to account. They weren't. Then she throws out the bankruptcy lie. We've nailed that stat, I think, at least 5 times on the show to show that it was grossly inflated, and the majority of the debt that they were trying to discharge in the, quote, bankruptcy was under $5,000. So once again, it was statistical manipulation to come up with a statistical lie to justify something as an absolute crisis to sell the total takeover of the healthcare system. And then she got challenged on the policy being, oh, it's terrible. 6 million people, by the way, 5 million people lost their policies. But hey, and they liked their policy and they were able to keep it, period. No, she has to refer to those as, oh, they were substandard. Well, you already know the rest of the story there. People liked their policy. They wanted to keep it. They weren't allowed to. And President Obama then tried to rewrite the law, and that was certainly way outside of his executive position and has caused the insurance companies to go back and forth. Take one thing from this. If you are allowed the opportunity to speak the truth and not even given equal time as somebody who is lying, you're going to win the debate. You're going to win the discussion for those that really care and want to solve the problems. Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth proudly on. Say it with me now. AFR Talk.
For Christians, the new healthcare law presents some difficult moral dilemmas.